Hello and thank you so much for being here. My name is Claire George and I'm on the product marketing team here at AHA. Today I am excited to show you some of the really exciting new functionality we released this year that is available for customers on our Enterprise Plus plan. So specifically we'll be looking at flexible automation rules, capacity planning for teams, and also scenario analysis. Now I'm going to make the bold assumption that you're probably watching for one of two reasons. You might already be on our Enterprise Plus plan and perhaps you haven't yet had a chance to check out some of these updates, so you're here to learn more. Or perhaps you're simply here out of curiosity. Maybe you've been wondering if our Enterprise Plus plan is right for you, and if so, this really is a perfect way to take a look. So whatever inspired you to watch today, I'm delighted you're here and I'm really looking forward to showcasing what's new in Enterprise Plus. Now, before we get into the details, I do want to take a moment to make sure everyone understands what our Enterprise Plus plan actually is. And it really comes down to two key things: some additional advanced functionality to support the needs of large organizations, and also concierge service. Let's take a quick look at our pricing page, as it's an easy way to see all of our plans lined up side by side. Now, if you're not sure what plan you're currently on, you can find this information in the billing section of your account if you have administrator permissions, or if not, then the easiest way is just to ask your account administrator directly. Disclaimer, this is not a sales pitch. We don't have a sales team here at AHA. Our goal is purely to make sure that you're on the right plan with the right functionality and the right level of support that you need to be successful. Now, as you can see here, the first three plans, Startup, Premium and Enterprise, all include the same core functionality. So the ability to set strategy, build roadmaps, create plans, prioritize work, gather feedback, report on progress, and share presentations. All of the things that you know and love AHA for. And of course, our highly responsive customer success team is available to all customers to help you answer any questions. And then over here on the right, we have our Enterprise Plus plan. This plan really was created to support the needs of large organizations, so companies that have very big product and project portfolios, which means that work streams tend to be a lot more complex to define and navigate. So as you can see here, this plan includes some very sophisticated functionality. I've already mentioned automation, scenario analysis, and capacity planning for teams, but it also includes custom tables and calculations, advanced license management, and then also our concierge service. Concierge service is a very highly personalized level of support. Our concierge team will help you kick off your implementation the most effective way possible to really plan out the best way to roll AHA out across your organization. And as part of that process, the team will help you set best practices and document standards so that you really can get the most out of AHA in your organization. So all of that to say, Enterprise Plus really is designed for teams with very sophisticated needs. If you're on a different plan, it might well be that it's perfect for you, which is absolutely fine. Either way, I think it can be helpful to know exactly what your options are so you can understand everything that's possible to do in AHA as your needs evolve. Okay, so as I mentioned a moment ago, today we're going to be focusing on three important areas of new functionality: automation, capacity planning for teams, and scenario analysis. We are going to be covering a lot, so to make the flow easier to follow, I'm going to hit on 3 points for each area of functionality. I'm going to start by setting the stage, really explaining what the functionality is and how it can help you. I'm going to take some time then to show you how it works, share some important tips on how to set it up, and then finally we'll see it in action. I really want you to walk away today with a great sense of what you can do with our Enterprise Plus functionality. Okay, so let's dive right in and start talking about automation. So first we need to set the stage. Automation is all about the ability to create flexible rules that help you automate routine tasks. It's a great way to streamline processes by eliminating some of those really important but manual tasks that can take up some of your time each day in AHA, such as making sure data is entered correctly, or reassigning work, or notifying people of updates. I'll be honest, this is one of my favorite features in AHA. I'm all about constantly trying to find ways to improve processes by helping the team work in a more efficient and consistent way, and this functionality really does deliver on that promise. We actually use automation in so many different ways across our marketing team. Here I'm giving you a little look into how we use automation to streamline our QA process for updating the website. So now every time an update is staged and ready to be published, the person who requested the work receives an automated to-do asking them to do things like check links and formatting and typos and images. And so the person who received the request knows exactly what's expected of them. When they're done, they can change the status to ready to publish, and the team receives another automated to-do letting them know that it's ready to go live. But we use automation in other ways too. One of my favorite rules is the way we automatically add goals and initiatives to our marketing activities when we create a new one. So this way we don't have to keep remembering to make sure that all of our work automatically ties through to our strategy. AHA helps manage that for us. So like I say, there really are so many ways that you can use this, and it really will, I think, come clear as I show you how the functionality works, exactly how versatile this functionality is. So over here, I'm in my workspace settings, and that's where you'll find automation if you are on the Enterprise Plus plan. I want to start by explaining how rules work. So for each rule, you're going to need a trigger and an action. A trigger is an event, such as maybe adding a new feature or changing the status of a record. And then the action is what you want to happen when the trigger occurs. So workspaces on Enterprise Plus do come with some example rules already built in to help you get started. So let's just take a moment to talk through some of these rules, because all of these rules that I'm showing you here were based on popular requests from customers. So the first rule here, for example, is when a release date changes, create a to-do. This is perfect for making sure that the whole cross-functional team is notified when a release date changes and that they have that reminder to go ahead and realign their plans with the new date. Another rule here is when the status of a feature changes, automatically update the status of the corresponding idea. A great way to make sure that ideas and features stay in sync throughout the development process, that customers can automatically see the latest status of an idea in the ideas portal, but again, saves the product manager the effort of having to go back and make sure that everything is in sync manually. We've got other rules here for keeping fields in sync. So if a field on one record changes, update another field. Or if the status of a record changes, update the assignee. Then this last rule here is another useful one. So when an idea vote hits a certain threshold, send an email. This is perfect for keeping people informed of trending ideas so that you might readjust your plans or prioritize an idea for implementation. So these are just some of the ways that you can use this functionality, but I think the best way to really show you how it works is to go ahead and create a rule together. So the first thing you're going to need to do is choose the record type that the rule applies to. So I'm actually going to go ahead here and create a rule for initiatives. Now, the rule I want to create is to automatically notify our VP of Marketing, Molly, when an initiative slips. So Molly likes to keep a really good watch on all of our strategic marketing initiatives, and if anything changes in the plan, she needs to know in case it impacts our overall marketing strategy. So now I can create an automation rule that will take care of that for me. Rules follow a very simple sentence structure, so they're very easy to create. So let me show you how this works. Here I'm going to say that when an idea is created or updated and its end date changes to exactly later than, let's say, 7 days after the previous end date, then the action I want to happen is to send an email, and I can choose Molly from the list here. I could go ahead and give the email a subject line and a message, and it automatically includes a link to the initiative, so Molly will have full context of what we're notifying her about. And then I would simply go ahead and save the rule and enable it, and that's it. I no longer need to worry about making sure that Molly is automatically informed when those initiative dates change. So let's go back and take a look at some of the other rules that I created earlier. There's one particular one that I really want to draw your attention to. So the rule I want to show you gives you a way to dynamically assign work to different teammates. Now, when we looked at the initiatives example, you saw how we could assign a to-do or an email to a specific user. So in the example that I shared, we made sure that the email was going to be sent to Molly every time that rule runs. But in other situations, you need to be able to assign work in a more dynamic way. So let's think about the scenario of a feature moving through your workflow, and perhaps you want to create a rule so that when it moves from having all of the requirements defined and it goes to InDesign, you want to automatically assign the feature to the right designer. But in larger teams, there could be multiple designers that could potentially be assigned to that work. So we need to make sure that AHA has a way to assign the work to the right person. And so we enhanced our automation functionality so that you can do exactly that. The way you can use this functionality is in your action is to make sure the action is the same as a user that's already listed in a standard or custom field on a record. So let me show you what I mean. I'm going to open up a feature here on this feature board, which is in my demo environment, Fredwin Cycling. And you can see here that this feature is currently assigned to Eric Johnson. So we're imagining here that Eric Johnson is our product manager. But you can see down here, I've got a second field, which is a designer field. Now this is a custom user field that I created, and I can still select any AHA user, but in this instance I would select the person who is going to be designing this new functionality. So for this example I have chosen myself, but let's go back to the automation rule and I can explain in more detail how this ability to dynamically assign rules to different people works. So you can see in the rule flow here that when a feature is created or updated and the status changes to a specific value of InDesign, then we want to update the assigned user field to be the same as the user that's in that custom designer field I just showed you. I went a step further with this particular rule. I also wanted to automatically assign that same designer a to-do, so the designer knows when we need the work completed by. So let's now go ahead and see automation in action. So I'm going to go back to our features board here. I want you to watch closely as I change the status of this feature from under consideration to InDesign. Keep your eye on that assigned user field and we'll see what happens. And there, magic! You can see how once the rule ran, the assigned user automatically updated to Claire George. And if I scroll down, you can also see that there's now a to-do that's been added to this feature. So I've got a week to go ahead and get these designs worked on. And again, it just streamlines that handoff, makes it really clear who's accountable for the work and when it needs to be done by. So this is just one of the really great ways that you can use automation in AHA. Okay, we are going to move on now and start talking about capacity planning for teams. I know this is quite a context change talking about automation, so I do want to take a moment to really set the stage here. I want to start by reflecting on the key ingredients that you need for product success. And there really are three main things. So first of all, you need a winning strategy. You need your vision, you need goals and initiatives, so the team understands exactly what you want to accomplish and why. You also need a clear roadmap. You need to have a timeline for achieving those goals and initiatives. But in addition to all of that, you have to be able to fulfill the promise of your roadmap. Now, you're going to need a strong team to actually implement the work, but you also need a realistic understanding of the actual effort required to deliver the work. I mean, I'll be honest, you can define the most brilliant plans, but you're not going to get very far if the right people with the right skills aren't available at the right time. You've always been able to do some capacity planning in AHA at the individual level. So you can set the capacity of releases using time or story points. You can then go ahead and add an estimate to each feature. So you can see here this new marketplace feature has an estimate of 15 days. And you can use that information to understand if the scope of the release is right. Have you got the right balance of features for the available capacity of the team. You can also go a step further than that. You can assign features to individuals, and then you can look at the capacity planning report for individuals to see how work is spread across different teammates. So just taking a quick look at this report here, I can see by month how much work each team member has assigned to them, and I can really drill into the details. So I can immediately see that Rose is over capacity in August. She's got 6 days of work that she really isn't going to be able to get to based on all of the different features that are currently assigned to her. So I can also go ahead and very quickly resolve capacity issues directly from this report. Now, I would have a couple of options here. I could go ahead and reassign this two-factor authentication feature that seems to be causing the main issue. I could assign that to a different teammate, or I can see that she really just needs that extra 6 days. So what I think I'm going to do is just push the feature out a week or so, and you will see the report update. Now my capacity issue has been addressed and the plan is looking good. So that gives you a sense of how capacity planning works in AHA in a kind of more simple way. And this functionality is available across all plans. But the reality in many organizations is that capacity planning can be a lot more complex than this. So think about what it takes to plan a major initiative or project, for example, that requires multiple teams to deliver the work. Before you can even commit to the work, you need to know if those teams have the availability to deliver it. And that's where capacity planning for teams comes in. It really does open up advanced ways to estimate your work. Capacity planning for teams has two main capabilities. I'm going to give you a very quick overview of those two key capabilities now to set the stage, but we will come back in a moment and I'll show you how it all works in a lot more detail. So first of all, let's just go over to the initiatives board here, and I'm going to show you an advanced team-based estimate that I already added to this initiative. So let's click on our estimate here. And what you can see is a simple scenario where I'm able to add teams and put in a total number of hours that each team needs to complete the work. And then AHA will total that up. And so we very quickly get a sense of the overall effort that is going to be needed. So I'm going to go ahead here and kind of quickly add one more team. And it really is that simple. That's how you can create team-based estimates. And then once you've built out those estimates, you can use that same capacity report that we just looked at for individuals, but you can see how it looks across teams. Now, like I say, I'm going to come back and show you how this report works in far more detail in just a moment, but this is just to give you the context of how this functionality works. Okay, so hopefully that helped to set the stage. Let's now dive in and see all of the things that are happening behind the scenes powering those team-based estimates. So we're going to head over to our capacity planning settings. Now, there are two levels of capacity planning settings for teams in AHA. Some are at the account level and some are at the workspace level. But most of the initial setup happens at the account level. You'll see here that there are a number of tabs laid out that really help follow the workflow of the different components that you need to set up. So let's start by talking about scenarios. Now, a moment ago I mentioned I was just using a very simple scenario of calculating the total number of hours by team. We're going to talk about scenarios in far more detail when we get to that section of the tutorial. So just stick with me for now on the understanding that we're using that very simple scenario to start capturing our team-based estimates. Then you'll need to set up work schedules for your teams. A work schedule is where you really start putting in the key information so that AHA can calculate the available capacity of each team. So here I've set up a schedule for North America teams. I've selected the working days, the hours per day that each team is available, and also you could enter in any non-working days. Maybe the team doesn't work on New Year's Day, for example, and so we want to factor that into our overall capacity. You could create multiple schedules, particularly helpful if you have a global team with different working hours or different non-working days. So you really can capture that baseline information upfront. And then from there, it's all about adding the teams themselves. Now, you can add teams at both the account level and at the workspace level. So at the account level, it makes sense to add teams Here I've added finance and legal, but teams that really do support multiple different groups across the organization. But if we jump over to our workspace settings, you'll see here I've gone ahead and added more teams. These are the teams that are dedicated to working on my product, Fredwin Cycling. So let's click on one of these and I will show you how you can build out the next level of detail about each team. So let's talk about the blue team and some of the information that I've already entered in here. So the first thing I did was go ahead and select the work schedule. I have an option here of entering a start and an end date for my team. This can be really useful if you have a temporary team, for example, that's going to be available for a certain period of time. If you want to use capacity planning for teams to calculate financial estimates, then it's worth putting in an hourly cost here so that AHA can do those calculations for you. And then over here, this is where you really get into the details of the team's capacity. So there are a couple of ways to fill this information out. So you can either enter in the information manually by just putting in a total number of hours that the team is available each week and you're done. Or you can choose to calculate capacity from people. And again, when I get to people, there are two ways of doing this. I could either just put in the total number of people on the team and say 5 and be done. Or if I really want to get into the next level of detail, I can actually add people directly to the team in AHA. There are two ways to enter people. So you can go ahead and select existing AHA users, or you can choose to create virtual users. And this is perfect for any teammates who aren't users in AHA, but that you need to include their capacity when you're making these team-based estimates. So this is all pretty straightforward to fill out. Now that I've been through all of those key areas, I've got a scenario set up, I've got my work schedules and my teams all ready to go, I am ready to go ahead and start setting team-based estimates. So now we're going to head back to the initiatives board and talk about 2021 planning. So let's imagine that we are setting our initiatives for the first half of 2021. I'm going to admit I do quite like to get ahead of my planning, so don't worry if you haven't started on yours yet, you're not behind. But in this scenario, what I've done is I've assumed that all of my initiatives right now are going to start on the 1st of January 2021 and they're all going to run through to the end of June 2021. And what I want to do is really just to create high-level estimates of the work so that I can get an overall sense of, is the work that I have planned feasible and realistic? And so that simple default scenario that we talked about earlier, just entering in a total number of hours by team, is a perfect way to do this. I showed you how easy it was to go ahead and add a team and enter in a total number of hours. And so I've done this for all of my initiatives. This is now the perfect time to go and take another look at the capacity report for teams and see how the work is spread out and if there are any potential issues that we need to address. So I want to take a moment as we see the capacity report in action to ensure that you understand how AHA is calculating the way hours are assigned and allocated. So I'm going to click on the blue team here and take a look at the work that is assigned in January. So over here on the left, you can see all of the different initiatives that the blue team is scheduled to work on. Now, how does AHA figure out what hours to assign and when? Well, it's all based on the priority order that the initiatives are ranked in your initiatives view. So this order here, mobile upgrades, launch marketplace, expand global markets, global GPS, and so on, that's the order that we have already prioritized the initiatives. And so the way AHA now calculates this is for the blue team, it will look at the total number of hours that we have allocated to the blue team to work on the mobile app upgrades. It will assign all of those hours to the blue team first. And when the blue team has finished working on mobile upgrades, we'll start on the next initiative. So you can see in February, the team is still working on mobile upgrades. When we get to March, that initiative finishes and Launch Marketplace comes into effect. Then as we keep going through the first half of the year, we can see Launch Marketplace finishes up and Expand Global Markets is now being allocated some of the team's time. And again, by May, we're now starting to work on the Galileo GPS initiative. And by the time we get to June, we're finishing up Progress Dashboard and we're onto the UI refresh. But this is where we can now see there are some capacity issues. The team's time has been allocated at 100% based on all of the hours that need to be worked on. And so that's why it all backs up in June, and we can see in total how many hours they're over. So what could I do now to resolve these issues? Well, this report is telling me a number of things. First of all, I tend to be a bit concerned if every team is allocated work at 100% capacity every month. That really doesn't give me much wiggle room if anything slips or someone goes off on PTO or perhaps the scope of an initiative changes. There isn't any extra slack here for us to work with. I can see that the red team does have some capacity available in June. The question is it enough capacity to finish off that UI refresh initiative? Well, I can see that they have just over 1,000 hours available, but even if I took the number of hours that the blue team is over and the number of hours that the green team is over, it's still going to be too much work for the red team to complete. So having looked at this report, I think I'm going to make the decision that I'm trying to prioritize too much work. It's just not looking realistic. So what I'm going to simply do is I'm going to take the UI refresh out of the picture for now. You can see how the capacity planning for teams report automatically updates. And so now I have a really good sense of the work that I have planned. I have a high level of confidence that this plan is achievable. I can see that the teams now have some capacity in both May and June. So I'm feeling really good about the amount of work that I think we can accomplish in the first half of next year. But as we said, the default scenario that we've used is a very simple approach for creating a high-level estimate. The reality is that these teams are not going to be working on each initiative sequentially, and that's really where scenario analysis can help. So let's set the stage for that. The team might need to start on some initiatives before other initiatives. They might be working on multiple initiatives in parallel, and some of these initiatives won't last the entire 6 months. So now that we have a good sense that the amount of work feels realistic, I now want to get into the planning details and get more sophisticated. And this is where creating different scenarios can help me compare different versions of the plan and change different variables such as the start and end dates or which teams are going to work on each initiative and how many hours. And then I can really figure out which plan is optimal. Okay, so let me show you how scenario analysis for teams works. We're going to head back to our account settings for capacity planning for teams, and we'll revisit that very first tab that I moved over very quickly when we started looking at how capacity planning for teams works. So let me click here on Add Scenario Configuration, and I can explain a little bit more about the options that are available. So you can create different scenarios using different units. So you have 3 options. You can estimate in the total number of people, hours, or cost. We have a number of customers who love using the people option to help inform hiring plans and headcount needs. Hours we've already talked about, a great way to get a sense of the total effort that each team needs to invest, say for a strategic initiative. But you could also put in cost information, which your finance team is probably going to love, so that you can really get a sense of what the overall investment looks like. You also have 2 options here in what we call the estimate layout. So again, the scenario that I used previously was just looking at the total hours across the team, but you can also estimate using different time intervals. So I've got a number of different options here depending on the level of granularity that we want to get into. So I could choose day, week, month, quarter, or year. So you can create as many different scenarios as you need, and you can add multiple advanced estimates to each record. So to show you how this works, I've created a scenario here that I'm going to use and get back into planning those initiatives that we just looked at in more detail. So the scenario I'm going to use here looks at hours by month, and that enables us to allocate hours by team on a monthly basis. So I can really get far more granular with my planning. So let's head back to the initiatives view. So the first thing that we're going to need to do here is to change our active scenario. you can choose the scenario you want to use in your personal settings. It's very intentional that this is a personal setting because you could have different teammates working on planning at different times and wanting to use different scenarios. So it very much is a personal choice as to which scenario you use. So here I'm just going to come up and select that new scenario that we just talked about for estimating initiatives using hours by month. So I'm going to go ahead and select that. And what you'll see on this UI refresh initiative that I'm on is now that I've changed scenario, I have this new option here to set advanced estimate. So if I click on this, you'll see the new layout of the scenario that we just switched to. So just as before, I could go ahead and I can add teams here and I can put in the number of hours per month and fill out all the information. And again, AHA will keep calculating the total effort required. Now, I know I took the UI refresh initiative out of my plan. I just wanted to use this as an example to show you how I can add multiple advanced estimates to each record. But let's take a look at a different initiative. We'll go into expand global markets here, and you'll see how I've already gone ahead and filled out this information. So the way I'm using this scenario is that I have my default scenario with my total number of hours. I've kept the estimate that I've created for the second scenario with the same total number of hours. It's just here you can see that the work is now spread differently across the teams. There are some teams who aren't going to be working on that initiative in certain months, and the teams might be getting started on that initiative at different times. So you can see how this gives me a lot more flexibility to really plan out the details. And now that I've filled out all of that information for all of my initiatives, I'm going to head back to the capacity planning for teams report and see how the allocation of work looks with my new scenario. So instantly I can see that the spread of work is far more balanced, right? Not every team is at 100% capacity every month. In fact, the green team looks to be in a very healthy situation, probably a couple of concerns there as we get to May and June as the work's backing up a bit. But I can also instantly see that I've got some issues that I need to address with the blue team. They're over capacity in February, March, April and May. But on the upside, I can see that the red team actually has quite a lot of capacity. So this really gives me some flexibility to adjust my plan. So let me have a look at what's going on with the blue team in February and see what we could do to fix this. So it really looks like that initiative Expand Global Markets is the one that is causing some capacity challenges. So I'm going to open up the advanced estimate right from the report here. I'm going to see what happens if I bring the red team into the mix. So what I'm going to do is take those hours that I allocated to the blue team. I'm going to remove them from the blue team and just go ahead and assign them all to the red team. And again, you'll see how the report automatically updates. And honestly, this is magical. The ability to get into this advanced level of planning and to really have confidence that I'm assigning work and that the plan is realistic is absolutely fantastic. I have to say, it can actually get quite addictive playing around with this report and shifting hours and teams and changing starts and end dates and seeing what happens. But it really is a great way to adjust your plans and, like I say, make sure that what you are planning is realistic. I think this report is a great way to have a conversation as well. You could show others the different scenarios that you've created so that collectively everyone can align behind the right way forward and make those plans come into reality. So I really hope you've enjoyed here being able to see both capacity planning for teams in action and then building on that with scenario analysis and seeing how it all comes together to help you create the most optimal plan. And of course, we started out by looking at the automation functionality and really saw that in action and how it can make your processes far more efficient. If you have any questions, please do reach out to our customer success team. We also have many support articles and resources that provide more detail about how this functionality works. But whether you're already on our Enterprise Plus plan and have questions about how to set up and use the functionality, or if you're on a different plan and considering the Enterprise Plus plan, we would love to talk to you about how you could get the most out of this sophisticated functionality in your account. So thank you for watching today. I hope you've enjoyed it. It's been a real pleasure for me having the opportunity to show you what's new in Enterprise Plus. Thank you for joining me. Bye.